Hello everyone and welcome to this very special interview episode of the Canvas Chat. My name is Martin the Maverick Bell and I'm afraid I'm not joined by my tag team partner Bobby the Bruiser Bonehill today. Instead, I'm going to be joined by the senior official of Evolve, Brandon Tolle. This interview was recorded back in February, and I actually recorded it for a different podcast. It was called Creativity Talks, the idea being that I would talk to different creatives from around the world, and I would always interview people from things that I was interested in. And of course, professional wrestling is something that I'm not only interested in, but I'm passionate about. So I was interviewing a few different people from the wrestling world, and then I thought to myself, hang on a minute, not everyone wants to listen to a man talk about professional wrestling. I know. I couldn't believe it. It boggles the mind, it really does. But then myself and Bobby decided to start the Canvas Chat podcast, where we get to reflect on the week's action in WWE. We get to quiz each other on our wrestling knowledge. We just get to geek out, essentially. And if you want to check out the podcast, you can find it at thecanvaschat.podbean.com. But let's get to the interview. So here we are. This is the unsung hero of Evolve. It's referee Brandon Tolle. How we doing, Brandon?
Good. How are you, Martin?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, before the interview, we started talking about your very, very, very busy schedule. Now, I presumed, because I saw you at Rev Pro, that you'd be a British referee, but that's not the case, is it?
No, I live in the United States. I'm U.S.-based ref. I am the head referee for Evolve Wrestling here in the United States.
How do you know which company you're going to be working for? I mean, how did you coming over to the UK? How did that happen?
I had been talking to some of the UK talent that I work with regularly here in the States, and I'd been talking to them just in private, just kind of been expressing a desire to want to get over to the UK. I actually did my first work outside of North America, not even a year ago when I was over in Australia. So I was like, and I had so much fun with it. And it's just, for me, it's a natural progression in terms of trying to get out onto those bigger platforms, then get over to places that, I may very rarely or may only get to go to once. Mm-hmm. So the UK has always been at the top of my list. So, months ago, we're probably talking into the fall. I started trying to get contacts and get out there and start getting emails out, and just kind of started talking, and got a response from Dan Enlow, the promoter of IPW UK, and he gave the January date, saying this is really one of the only dates we have in need. And I said, okay, let me see what I can do. And I knew for me, I would want to make it at least 2 shows.
Yeah, to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, so I looked around. I was looking out to see what was running the day before, and Rev Pro was running. And I'd actually met Andy Kildane, the promoter of Rev Pro, last year in Dallas on the WrestleMania weekend. And him and I talked, a little bit at length. Had a real good conversation. And, I had expressed to him kind of a desire to want to come over to the UK. And so I reached out to him once I saw it there running your call. I was like, I love the building from what I've seen on video. This is exactly what I would want to do. And shot him an email, telling him the situation, and got back, and he booked me.
It just shows the amount of dedication that you have, all the travel that you put into it, and that you're totally invested in the world of pro wrestling. But where did this love originally come from?
I grew up watching wrestling. I started watching it at 3 years old. Some of my earliest memories I have are of watching like primetime wrestling and all that here in the States with my dad. And just kind of grew from there. As I got older, I just continued to be immersed. And I mean, I'm only in my early 30s. I'm 31. Yeah. So we're talking growing up into my teenage years. I was the Attitude Era. Yeah. But I mean, even before that, I'm more of an 80, early 90s guy personally. From when I was a kid, loved that stuff. And just kind of grew into it. And as I was getting ready to graduate, I decided I was going to go to college. but I also wanted to explore into trying to get into the wrestling industry, and just so happened to meet a person who was a graduate of Shawn Michaels Academy in San Antonio, and was willing to train me. So it was a Christian-based promotion here in the U.S. that I don't even know if it's in existence anymore. I haven't seen my trainer in years. But I would just I would train, and I would go to shows, and go to shows. I'd build the ring, pay dues, train during the days before the shows, and watch the shows. And
didn't you train to be a wrestler originally?
Yep, 6 months. It was about 6 months in, and went to a show, built the ring, paid dues, trained all day. And then apparently the promoter there forgot to book a ref. So I'm ref size. So he came up to me. He's like, "Do you think you can do it?" And I said, "Absolutely. I've studied I watch tape endlessly. I don't think there's a day that goes by that I'm not watching tape of some sort, even now." And I put on the stripes and went out there, and it was natural. It was like duck on water. And after the show, my trainer looked at me. He's like, "I think we found your calling."
Could you tell us about some of the fundamentals? What makes a good referee? What you've been taught? What you've learned?
It's really and basic rules. So your counts. I mean, and when I've been fortunate enough, and I've been asked to give seminars, and I've at this stage in my career and be able to teach, it's your counts. It's simple things like have a clear view of both shoulders. Something that I'm big that really kind of strikes me is letting stuff register, because we're in an era of wrestling where guys will do sequences of moves for 2 or 3 minutes and lay there. But stuff like, let's say 2 guys lock up, they go back to the corner, tap them on the shoulder. Don't go right to the count. Tap them on the shoulder. Let it register what's going on before going into the count. It's having the authority, having the authority, having them respect the rules and why we're there, but at the same time, not be a distraction, not be something that is overshadowing or getting over the talent.
What are some of the ways that a referee can distract from what's happening in the ring?
Well, I mean, messing up, whether it's not counting pinfall wrong, or if you get the count out wrong, like 10 versus 20, or, just doing things, whether if they're in a wrong position and they just get hit or creamed, by a guy moving. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just those things that you have to really be mindful of. It's not just to stay out of the way, because the best ref is one that's not seen. Yeah. So things to stay out of the way, but be where you need to be, because if you mess up or something, then you stick out like a sore thumb. And then the attention's now coming to you, and it's being taken off of the talent.
Well, it happens to the best of them. I remember watching No Way Out 2001, 2002. I think it's 2001. And it's The Rock versus Kurt Angle. And they go to what's supposed to be the finish. The Rock does the rock bottom, goes for the cover on Kurt Angle. It's meant to be a 3 count, but Earl Hebner seems to forget what the finish is, and he doesn't count the 3. Instead, he pulls back and only does a 2, but Kurt Angle's shoulders down.
Yeah, and then you count 3. That's not something that, honestly, it becomes Earl's mistake when he pulls his count. Mm-hmm. Just count 3.
Yeah, just
they kick out. If they don't, then that's on them.
Being a senior referee for Evolve, I mean, how many matches will you call an evening?
It really depends. We kind of did a reformat about 2 years or so ago, and went from doing 8 match cards down to guaranteed 6, maybe 7. Mm-hmm. So it's 2 refs. So it's normally now a 4-3 split. Yeah. There may be times where, because we have a second full-time ref at Evolve, his name's D.A. Brewer, but if there's times where he can't make a show for whatever reason and we use somebody else, it may be 5 where I'm taking 5 out of 7.
And how do you get to that senior level? How do you become the senior referee?
I got my first opportunity with Dragon Gate and Evolve, or now it's the parent company, the World Wrestling Network. I got my start back in 2000. I got an opportunity in 2011. Dragon Gate was running here in the Midwest, and I had gotten booked for the company that we were running with, doing just the pre-show matches. I was not on the Dragon Gate show. The head referee at that time, his name is Jason Ayers, who is one of my absolute best friends in life, was the head ref, and he's actually now moved on. He's on SmackDown Live now. So I was there, and whoever the second ref was, and honestly, I still don't know who it was, didn't show up. So Jason talked to Gabe, and I got an opportunity to split the card with him on the Dragon Gate show. That was the first night of 3. Long story short, I ended up working the entire weekend on the Dragon Gate cards. So that was fall of 2011. Fast forward to the spring of 2012. My friend Jason had gotten hired by WWE and was leaving. And so I emailed Gabe, seeing if there was an opening or an opportunity, and got a 1 weekend opportunity in Miami for the 2 pay-per-views, and went down on a 1 weekend guarantee, and went down, and Gabe hired me that weekend. So it was about probably 6 months in that I got the head ref title. I remember there was like a WWN news alerts that we put out, like, every so often, actually on a pretty regular basis nowadays. And there was a picture of me with a wrestler that was taken from a prior Dragon Gate loop. And the caption under it had head referee, and Gabe actually had something else saying, "Hey, take a look at the caption on the photo," and had head referee on it. So that's kind of why I was kind of given the title. And I've been really this guy the entire rest of the way. I have not missed one set of shows between WrestleMania 28 weekend and now.
And what's it been like to see the product grow? I mean, every wrestling fan that I talk to, they seem to know of Evolve.
It's I remember the beginning. I remember we doing a tour of the Carolinas, and the attendance, I remember small crowds. I remember seeing those small crowds. And I remember going to New York for WrestleMania 29 weekend and seeing 1,500 people, 2,000 people, or whatever it was. And I remember seeing the same kind of crowds last year in Dallas. And it's amazing because not only from seeing how the promotion has evolved, how everything has evolved, pun intended, over the past 5 years, but also seeing the talent, and seeing, the talent that's come and gone. I mean, you want to look at it, a little before my time, but I mean, Luke Harper, who's on SmackDown Live, came from Dragon Gate. I actually had I worked something with him right before he left. John Moxley or Dean Ambrose, who I worked with even before that outside of Dragon Gate and Evolve. I didn't work with him then, but he came out of Dragon Gate and Evolve. Sami Callihan, when he went to NXT, is now back in the independents. Kalisto, Samuel Del Sol, El Generico. We could go, in the last year, Drew Gulak, Johnny Gargano. We had Roderick Strong for a little bit, TJ Perkins, who are all now either up NXT or 5 Live. We had Tommaso Ciampa in and out. I mean, to see the evolution of the roster and how everything has just kept going, and we're, now where we are with guys like, Matt Riddle.
A lot of wrestling fans, they get a bit worried that the WWE is just cherry picking all the talent from the indie scenes. But I'm hearing more and more stories of WWE actually paying back to some of those promotions they're getting the talent from.
There were some NXT television tapings a year or so ago, I think, but where we were able to put Evolve flyers on the seats at an NXT TV. That's unheard of. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where we were able to promote our shows, or, where WWE.com was doing articles about like Johnny Gargano's final weekend, and that would immediately be plugs for our shows to come see us, or the Cruiserweight Classic qualifiers that we were one of only 3 companies that got. It was us, Rev Pro, and Progress that got the Cruiserweight qualifier, stuff like that. The UK tournament, you know what I mean? Seeing stuff like the UK tournament, it's absolutely not a cherry picking, it's not in any way.
And you mentioned some amazing names there that have come through the Evolve doors, but you've worked for various promotions, Ring of Honor, for example. Could you possibly tell us about some of your favourite matches to call? Now, that might be because of a milestone for yourself or because of the wrestlers involved in them. Could you tell us about some of those?
The milestones. Milestones. I remember my first New York show with Ring of Honor back in 2010. Well, when I got to go into New York for the first time, which now New York is almost like a second home or a third home. I say Florida is the second home. I remember New York the first time when I was up there. I mean, if you want to look in the WM microcosm, because that's 5 years, it's there's a lot that sticks out to me. I mean, the litany. I mean, I was fortunate enough. I worked for the National Wrestling Alliance. From like 2008 to like 2011, I was working out in California for the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood promotion. Was working for the Legends Conventions, but was also working. This is when Bob Trowbridge was the executive director of the NWA at the time. I was fortunate enough to be able to be the official for the 51st NWA title change in history from Blue Demon Jr. back to Adam Pearce in Charlotte, North Carolina. That stood out to me. New York for Ring of Honor stands out to me. I did just a run in a little bit of the match, but did a main event in New York for Ring of Honor, at least a small portion of it. That was Tyler Black and Roger Strong. So back in 2010, I had a good 2 or so years of Ring of Honor into my current run with the WBN. Johnny Gargano and Shingo from Open the Ultimate Gate 2013 stands out. Still one of my favorite matches to this day.
Now, I've only got just a few more questions. The interview's rapidly coming to a close. The next question, have you got any advice for anybody that's out there that wants to become a pro wrestling referee?
Train. Seek out a proper training place. Somewhere that's quality. Whether I know in the UK, I know Rev Pro's got a good training set up there. Progress has a good training set up there. In the US, I'd recommend, whether it be, Lance Storm's Academy out in Calgary if you're Canadian, or if you're US or Canadian, the Can-Am Wrestling School attached with Border City Wrestling in Windsor, Ontario, just over the river from Detroit. Run, I think, by Johnny Devine now, Scott D'Amore. Seek out proper training. Study tape. Study tape, and when you're done studying, study more. Never stop learning, never stop growing. Seek out the opportunities to be able to work with the best talent you possibly can. And grind. Yeah. Always grind, because there will be days that it's not easy, and there will be times where you think it's not fun. And never forget that, that love and that passion of the business that you have, because then you can get to moments like I did, or that I'm going through now, like last weekend in the UK. And for me as an American referee, not coming over with Evolve or anything like that, coming over independently on my own, is something that's not done a whole lot. And to be able to, I remember, walking through the curtain and, being on that ramp, heading down to the ring at Rev Pro, and I just stood there and kind of took it in for a minute while the introductions were going on, and was just and hold on to those moments, because it's those moments that will last, and
make it all worthwhile.
Absolutely, and for all that I've done, it feels like I've done something right, because I'm been very, very fortunate enough to be able to apply my craft in a few different countries and be able to come over to the UK or go to Australia or wherever it is. Been very fortunate enough with it, and the grind's not done. So pack my bags tonight, and I'll be off to San Antonio in the morning for Evolve on Flow Slam tomorrow night. But if you're gonna do it right. Put everything into it.
If people want to keep up to date with your adventures, where you're jetting off to next? Is there a way that people can find out that information?
I don't have Facebook. I'm one of the few that do not have Facebook in this world. My Twitter at ref Tolle Tolle WWN Live. The Evolve schedule is up on DGUSA.tv, WWNlive.com. We're on FlowSlam, we'll have our schedule up there as well. My Twitter's really my only social media. I don't have Instagram. I don't have anything like that. I have my Twitter. So that's really the way to kind of see where I'm going outside of, the WWN schedule. So, but, support, regardless of where the country, support, your independent wrestling companies.
Yeah.
It's the talent. That's how we as talent be able to apply our crafts, and then be able to, move and apply it on different platforms. But, support your independent wrestling. Just support wrestling in general. So, but yeah, my Twitter, and then, the World Wrestling Network. So WWNlive.com, DGUSA.tv, and FlowSlam.tv.